All right, folks, let's talk about fighting the enemy and winning. Here's the thing, battling in the flesh, something that you cannot win in the flesh and only the spirit is a fruitless type of thing. Because when we think about the idea of the enemy battling you, okay, so you're thinking about the enemy being something spiritual. Okay, we're not literally talking about an enemy that's sitting in the room, that's a bully, that somebody's going to walk over and punch you. We're talking about the enemy, and the enemy is a spiritual enemy, and that means that the enemy lives on a spiritual plane. And because that enemy lives on the spiritual plane, the things that you do in the physical are not able to battle what's on the spiritual plane. In order to battle what's on the spiritual plane, you've got to battle on the spiritual plane. So no matter how much work that you do in the flesh, it's not going to impact what's happening in the spirit world. Now, there's some things that you can do in the flesh that will act, it might impact. Maybe that was the wrong word. They might impact that, but you're not going to win it in the flesh. You're going to win it in the spirit. You're going to win it when God gets on your side. You're going to win it when angels are on your side. You're going to win it when you step into the spirit mentally and you fight in the spirit. Now, we may use our mind, our will, our flesh to step into the spirit to be able to do those things. And I'll share with you how that works today. But I really want to underlie this idea that you're not going to do it in your flesh, and you're not going to do it physically, but that the way that you're going to fight the enemy is going to be at a spiritual level. I want to read to you just a little bit out of Psalm 29, and I want to demonstrate something with you. And I'd like for you to lean into this. Okay, so let's go to Psalm 29. I'll just read the first few verses. So Psalm 29, give unto the Lord, O ye mighty, give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. The Lord is upon many waters. Read with me. Psalm 29, verse 4. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars. Yea, the Lord breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. He maketh them also to skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shaketh the wilderness. The Lord shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds to calf and discovers the forest. And in his temple doth everyone speak of his glory. The Lord sitteth upon the flood. Yea, the Lord sitteth king forever. The Lord will give strength unto his people. The Lord will bless his people with praise. My goodness, I'm feeling stronger right now, even as I'm reading that to you. And if you're not feeling stronger just by me reading it to you, hit pause on the video, okay? Go to Psalm 29 and read that to yourself. Read that to yourself. Or lean in. I'm going to read just a little bit in Psalm 30 now. It's the next Psalm. I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up and hast not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord, my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. O Lord, thou hast brought my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto the Lord, O you saints of his, and give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. So let me ask you this right now. I can sense right now that I'm stronger in the spirit than I was a couple of minutes ago. I'll be honest with you. When I started this call, I was feeling a little bit down. I really was. I was a bit rushed to get on here at a certain time. I've had a couple rough things kind of going on in my life in the last 24 hours. And when I flip the switch to come on live with you, you can probably sense a difference even in my tone right now. Okay. I was a little down. And I was kind of going through the motions of telling you what we're going to do is I was going to kind of give you 4 or 5 points. And I was going through the motions of it. But you know what? When I just read Psalms 29, and then I read it with a little bit of oomph. Okay, I put myself into it. I put some enthusiasm into it. Then I read a little bit of Psalm 30. You know, the truth of the matter is I'm feeling pretty strong right now. Because the truth of the matter is the enemy is out there. The enemy is out there, and the enemy is in the spirit world. But what is the enemy probably doing right now since I've risen up in the power of God and in reading his word? Okay, I haven't even made up words. sometimes I will go into a place, and we'll talk about it in a moment, where I'll just worship the Lord. Lord, you're an amazing God, and I love you, Lord, and you're an incredible God, and you're a worthy God. And there's a great place for that. I was simply reading the Lord's word back to him. Psalms 29 and Psalm 30, the first few verses. Okay. And there's actually some Psalms out there that have even stronger praise language inside of them. And by reading those out loud with enthusiasm, I feel stronger in the spirit. And my suspicion is that if the enemy is out there battling against me, the enemy is beginning to cower right now at the sound of the word. I submit to you that if you are in a really rough space and the enemy is just battering you, and you're feeling depressed, or you're ready to give up, or you don't know when the battle's going to be over, and life just couldn't get any worse. I submit to you that if you were to spend even 5 minutes a day doing what I just did, it would raise your spirit up. And maybe if you're having a really bad day, that's 5 minutes every hour. 5 minutes every hour to raise your spirit up. Or maybe it's even an hour a day where you just truly lean in and raise your spirit up. You see, here's the thing. God is a really big God, and we have access to a really big God. The challenge is, a lot of times we try to solve our problems ourselves. We're sitting there, we're worried about them, we're consumed by them. There's rampant thoughts going all over the place. Okay, whether those thoughts are popping up in your head on your own and distracting you, or the enemy is firing darts at you, doesn't make a big bit of difference. It's just that they're in your mind, and they are playing in the background, and they're always playing in the background. Okay, because none of us ever get to a place where nothing's going wrong. Okay, there's always going to be something going wrong in your life, and sometimes those things are worse. The truth of the matter is, a lot of times we get so used to having distractions in our head that even when things get better, we still get those darts in our mind constantly trying to distract us. And the sound of them is just as strong for a little problem as a big problem. I mean, the big problem might make our heart pound, and the little problem doesn't. But in terms of distraction, they're all there. But as soon as I go to the word and I say, "Oh Lord, I will extol thee, oh Lord, for thou hast lifted me up, and you've not made my foes to rejoice over me." Basically, it's saying that verse. I didn't even have that verse planned for this, but it says, "has not made my foes to rejoice over me." That's kind of like a double negative there, right? My suspicion is that some of the other versions actually say that you have prevented my foes from rejoicing over me. Now, we've just talked about how we can raise ourselves up in the spirit. And when we raise ourselves up in the spirit, then the enemy backs off. But let me ask you this. If you raise up in the spirit and you're worshiping God, do you think God just sits back like he's watching a movie and looks down and goes, yeah, somebody's praising me. That's cool today. Or do you think it's possible that God sees the enemy fighting against you, and then God sees you raising yourself up in his word? Is it possible that the Lord looks around and says, "I'm going to go down and help you. I'm going to go down and help you out. I'm going to send an angel down to help you out"? Is it possible? Look, folks, I'm not talking about bribing God, and I'm not talking about doing things just so God will act. But what if all I did was genuinely worship God? Maybe my purpose in worshiping God was just to glorify him. Maybe my purpose was when worshiping God was actually to get the enemy to run off. But what if God intervened and said, "You know what? I like seeing Sean worship like that. And the enemy has been going overtime. I'm going to go down there and I'm just going to stop the enemy." I want to switch gears here and switch to another verse. Okay, so we've really kind of talked about worship. How can worship allow us to fight the enemy and win? And so I want to switch gears. I want to look at Psalm 91. It's a bit of a long psalm, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read the first 2 verses because they set the stage. "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in him will I trust." So what those two verses are is setting up this passage. And basically the passage is being set up by this idea that if you dwell in the secret place with the Most High, okay, if you make God your refuge and your fortress, okay, now think about this. This isn't in the physical. None of us own a fortress. Okay. I mean, I assume you don't. You don't own a 100,000 square foot castle sitting up on a hill that's a fortress in the physical. So then what is this fortress? This fortress is a spiritual fortress. Now, if it's a spiritual fortress, then I can step into that fortress. Okay. I could just say, Lord, I'm coming into the fortress and I'm in instantly. I am instantly in the fortress in a moment, in a flash, in a blink of an eye. I'm in the fortress. Now, if I'm in a fortress with God, what can the enemy do in that fortress? The Bible says, this is 91:2, says, in him will I trust. Now, watch what verse 3 says. Before we get to verse 3, let's go back to the secret place. What's the secret place? Here's the thing. It's not physical. The secret place is not physical. It's not a cave you can go hide in. It's a spiritual thing. So you can literally step into a secret place with the Lord on command. You don't have to pray for 25 minutes and then you can finally walk into that secret place. You can literally snap your fingers. You can say, Lord, I'm stepping into the secret place. I worship you. And I'm so grateful that I get to step into the secret place. I'm stepping in. I'm in the secret place. And now in the secret place, I'm going to worship. I'm going to say, Lord, I worship you. I extol your presence. You're a mighty God and you're a holy God. And I'm in your secret place. And I'm going to claim your promises in the secret place. So what are the promises in the secret place? Verse 3 is one of the promises. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. What is the enemy we've been talking about? How to fight the enemy and win. Here it is right here. If I step into the secret place of the Most High, if I step into the refuge and the fortress with the Most High, he shall deliver me from the enemy. He will deliver me from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. Verse 4 says, he will cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. So if the enemy comes against me and God himself has covered me with his feathers, can the enemy get through God's feathers to finish his attack on me? No, the enemy can't make it through those feathers. Now, how can I get under those feathers? In an instant, or as long as it takes me to read this and mentally say, look, Lord, I'm going to step into the secret place. I am going to step into the refuge. I'm going to step into the fortress. And generally speaking, for me to do that, I just start worshiping. I say, Lord, I love you. I am stepping into your presence. This is my time with you. And I might say, Lord, the enemy is out there attacking me, and I am coming into your protection right now. And the enemy cannot touch me right now because your feathers are covering me. Case closed. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you that 6 hours from now that the enemy is not going to come back. But I truly believe that right now, the enemy's attack has stopped. Imagine a battlefield. Okay. It's Christmas Day. It's a battlefield. It's the Germans and the French. Okay. Or it's the French and the Americans. It didn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference what it is, but it's Christmas Day. And the soldiers are tired of fighting. And so they holler off, or maybe they do it in Braille, or they do it in smoke, or whatever they do. They say, hey, let's not fight on Christmas Day. We're enemies, but we're not going to fight on Christmas Day. And everybody gets to chill out on Christmas Day. That's what happens right there. How many of you need a Christmas Day from the enemies warring against you right now? If you need a Christmas Day, you can literally step into a Christmas Day by stepping into the secret place. You know what? I'm so excited about this. I want to read a couple more of the promises that come if we step into that secret place. So Psalm 91:5, thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. How many of you get afraid at night? How many of you, the enemy doubles up their battle against you at night? What if you were to just pull out Psalm 91 and say, you know what, enemy, not tonight. You won last night, And if you want to knock on my door tomorrow night, you can. But tonight, you're no bueno. You can't get in here. You can't mess with my head. You can't make me depressed tonight. I'm done. I'm done and I'm over with. And if I have to read the Lord's word aloud all night long in order for the enemy to stop the attack, I will. You know what the truth of the matter is? I think the enemy gets tired after a while. Because if you think about this, I don't have the verses for it, but you guys should know this. Remember when the enemy came against Jesus? Jesus had fasted for 40 days, so he was hungry. And so the enemy came against him, and he made him 3 big temptations. And of course, Jesus solves those temptations with the word. But here's what's interesting. What does the Bible say? The devil left him. The devil gets tired. Why didn't the devil just stay and tempt him 57 more times? Why didn't the devil just stay for 10 years and just... No, the devil left. Why did the devil leave? I don't know why the devil left. Maybe he got tired. Maybe he realized he couldn't win. The truth of the matter is, if you pray the word and the devil can't win minute after minute after minute and hour after hour after hour, what's the devil going to do? I think the devil will leave. And if the devil comes knocking, you just go right back to the word. I want to read verse 6. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. All right, let's move on. I want to pop over to verse 11. Now, I want you to understand that I believe that these verses are kind of covered by the beginning of this psalm. These promises, I believe these promises are people that dwell in the secret place and they dwell in the refuge and the fortress of God. And you have to step into that. You have to step into it. You step into that secret place. You say, Lord, I'm spending 20 minutes in the secret place with you. I'm going to spend 5 minutes, an hour with you, stepping into the secret place. I'm going to spend an hour with you. I'm stressed out. I'm going to stay till I'm not. Verse 11 says, for he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. That's interesting. The verse before this, verse 10 says, there shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. What does that mean? The enemy is trying to bring evil on you. The word says, if you do these things, if you position yourself as in the refuge, if you position yourself in the secret place, the word says, no evil will befall you. And the reason it won't, this is interesting. Verse 11, this is in the word. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. Okay, now, I'm not a believer in praying to the angels, and I don't want to debate that right now either. I'm just telling you, I don't believe that we command angels. I don't believe that we pray to angels, but I don't believe we need to. The word says that if we do the things in verses 1 through 10, the word says he will send angels to charge over thee. Now, we just talked about at the beginning of this message, we talked about the idea at the very beginning of this message that the battle we are fighting is in the spiritual realm, not the physical realm. Now we have to, in the physical, our flesh, we have to speak these words out, but the actual battle's happening in the spirit world. So if the actual battle's happening in the spirit world and the devil is there, then the angel can come. Who is going to be more effective at fighting the devil, you or the angel that God sends? I believe the angel probably is, unless he sends a weak, puny angel, right? He's probably going to send an angel that's a whole lot stronger than you. When that angel, if God sends an angel to fight behind the scenes against that devil that's bringing evil on you, what's going to happen to that evil that's being brought on you? It's going to be demolished. It's going to be demolished. But who gets angels to have charge over them? I don't believe everybody does. And I don't believe that it's necessarily all day long, every day. The word says that those who dwell in the secret place and that make God their refuge in the fortress, he will give his angels charge over thee to keep thee on all thy ways. The angels shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. This is out of context, but the next verse, I really like the next verse because it implies that once the angels fight off the demons, okay, we shall tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shall we trample under feet. And I believe that that is representative of we will trample over the enemy. We're going to run out of time here, but I want to give you a couple of different things. So the first thing I talked about was that God is a big God. We can just step into his presence with worship and the enemy will back off. We talked about getting into the secret place. And if we're in the secret place and God's feathers are over us, then the enemy will back off. The enemy won't be able to get through the feathers. We talked about positioning ourselves so that God will send angels to take charge over us. The third thing is, this is Ephesians chapter 6. Okay, so this is classic warfare. Okay, and by the way, so this is classic enemy warfare here. Okay. Paul says, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. How does Paul tell us to fight the enemy? He says, truth, righteousness, gospel of peace, faith. That specifically he says, taking the shield of faith. So if we step into faith, we have all these other things. We have worship. We're going to get in a secret place. His feathers are going to cover us. We're going to have God's angels at our side, but then we're going to step in faith. And it says that we will then be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. So if the enemy's out there fighting you and sending you fiery darts, how do you fight those? Aside from all the things I gave you already, how do we fight those? We just have faith. And folks, I submit to you, it can be a quiet faith. So we could have a boisterous faith. We could have like a 10-minute faith prayer, or we can just be like, you know what? I'm not taking the enemy right now. I'm just not taking it, right? You ever been in a room, you know, kids are crying, somebody's whining about something, you don't want to hear it, and you just turn your ears off? You're like, I don't hear you anymore. I'm checked out. You could do that for the enemy. Be like, you know what, enemy? I'm tired of you giving me those thoughts. I'm done for the day. I'm just done. And look, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about it. I know the enemy screams loud, and I know that that's hard to do all the time, et cetera, et cetera. But when we're talking about having multiple weapons, because I'm sharing with you multiple weapons today, could that not be a weapon, right? Just ignore the enemy for a little while. Okay, the fifth thing I want to share with you is James chapter 4, verse 7. So this is James 4:7, and we'll do a quick wrap up here. These things are real. These things are real, and these are 5 different ways. James 4:7 says, submit yourselves therefore to God. So submit yourself, because some of the things we've been talking about today, right? Worship. Submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. It doesn't say resist the devil and go yell at him for 45 minutes. It doesn't say resist the devil and use some magic mumbo jumbo on him for 45 minutes. It says resist and he will flee. Okay. And I don't want to minimize that other stuff, but here's what I want to do. I want us to focus on God. I want to focus on God redeeming us from the attack of the enemy. I titled this How to Fight the Enemy and Win. And I believe that, and there's other things in the word, but I believe I've given you 5 of some of the strongest weapons of warfare that you can use to fight the enemy and win. Let's review them. The first one is just praise. Praise. Psalm 29. I extol you, God. You are King of the universe. God, you are such a big God. You are bigger than all these devils that are trying to fight me. God, you're in the spirit and so are they. God, you are in charge. And then secondly, get in the secret place. Lord, I'm just going to step into the secret place. I'm going to step into the refuge and the fortress of your power. And now that I'm in the secret place, you are going to send an angel or angels to watch over me and to take care of me and to protect me from evil. Okay. And then I'm just going to have faith. I'm going to stand in truth and righteousness and peace and faith. I'm just going to stand in faith when the enemy sends the darts. And then finally, I'm just going to submit to God and I'm just going to resist. And you know what? I might just go back. I might go, you know what? I just feel good praising and go back to praising and say, God, I praise you. And God, I worship you. And God, let's do that together. As we end here, let's just end on this, because this is mighty warfare against the enemy. Father, I worship you. I worship you, and I am so grateful for your presence. I am so grateful that you are stronger inside of me than the enemy is on the outside, that who is with me is greater than who is against me, that who is inside of me is greater than the enemy that is battering at me. Who is inside me gives me a stronger shield than the enemy that's firing darts at me. Father God, you're such a big God and you're such an awesome God. And I'm stepping into your secret place right now. I am so pleased. I am so happy, Lord, to be inside the secret place. Father, thank you for allowing me entrance into the secret place. Father, thank you for being such a good father that puts his arms around me, that I can be like a son to you, that if you're a daughter, you can just be a daughter to the Lord. You can say, Father, can you just put your big hands around me? I'm just picturing the Father as this giant of a man, and just a giant of a man with these huge teddy bear paws. Okay. And it just gently covers you, right? God's power is just so great, but his love, I'm just picturing a little boy, and he's scared on the playground, and the bigger boys out there, they're bullying him, and they're taunting him, and maybe they're even punching him, and he runs home to daddy, and daddy is huge, and maybe daddy's a warrior, and maybe daddy even gets mad sometimes, and maybe daddy even has some bad traits and breaks things sometimes, but daddy loves his little boy. And the little boy comes running. He goes, the little kids are taunting me, and the little kids are this, and little kids are that. And daddy says, come here. And he wraps them up. Okay. And since he's a good daddy, he doesn't go out there and beat up all the other little boys. All right. But in the spirit world, God just might beat up the other little devils for you. Right. But God, this big father, just wraps you up, and he says, you know what, son? You know what, daughter? They can't get to you. And if they want to try to punch, they're going to have to punch me first. That's how God is. That's how God is with your challenges. That's how God is with my challenges. Father, I just give you all, I give you all the challenges of the day. Father, I give you all the challenges of the day. And God, you know that I've got challenges all the way around me. But God, that I'm right with you. I got things going with you because I'm in your secret place. I'm right here and I'm worshiping you, Lord, but the enemy is real. And I know that. And I want these people that are watching to be able to see that I'm not here in some Pollyanna world, living in a glass building where nobody can get to me. I have real fights going on against me right now, just like you might. Now, your fights might be bigger than mine, might be bigger than yours. It doesn't make any difference because God is a billion times bigger than you, and he's a billion times bigger than me, and he can hold both of us. Folks, I want to encourage you to go out there and worship God today and allow God to fight off the enemy for you and with you.